Hello and welcome to the NTI PodTalk. My name is Diane Kaler and I'm Director of Nutrition Therapy Institute. Join me as I talk to interesting people in the field of health and wellness, food and farming, and anywhere else we find conversations that matter to our community. By listening, you'll learn a little about NTI and a lot about the things and people around you that make a difference for your wellness. Welcome and let's get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of the NTI PodTalk. This is Diane Kaler, Director of Nutrition Therapy Institute. And I am so happy today to be talking to one of my favorite categories of guests, and that is a graduate of our program. We love to talk to graduates and hear what graduates are doing with their education and their certification and the knowledge that they gained here. So I am so excited to welcome Meg Olson. Hi, Meg. Thank you so much for being here today.
Of course. Hello.
Yes. Hi. Well, I am looking forward to this conversation because you do something, my understanding of what you do is something that is very unique amongst our graduates. And so I'm interested to have this conversation. So before we get into it, tell me a little bit about your background, what got you interested in nutrition and wellness, and what's your passion around this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I originally started to get very interested in nutrition and how nutrition affects the body when I was a D1 volleyball athlete and then also a high-level CrossFit competitor. So at that time, my passion was, how do I fuel myself? How do I eat in a certain way for performance sake? And then that was very surface level. That was macronutrients. I wasn't concerned about where the food was coming from, the quality of it, any of the micronutrients. I was really just focused on how can I fuel my performance. And then when I got out of the competition realm, I dove and wanted to dive in a bit deeper to what are the micronutrients? And then even further into where does my food come from? Where was it grown? What were those things eating? And that just kind of branched into all of these different categories and holistic views of how can I learn more about what I'm putting into my body, around my body, on to me with products. And it really just blossomed this really big lifelong research project of figuring out all of these different ways that I can live a bit more sustainably and healthier as well.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's really common for people to get to. They're like, where, what are they want to dive down deeper, and they really want to understand like what's the bigger impact to the way they nourish themselves. And so, as I said, you have a really interesting story. All right, so tell us about how you found NTI and what prompted you to want to come to school here.
Yes, that's a great question. When I was first thinking about health and nutrition, I had searched and found lots of 6-week programs and things that were very quick to make you a nutrition quote unquote professional. And I got to the point where I really wanted a deep dive. I wanted to learn about how the body works at a very foundational level and how these nutrients and things that I'm putting into my body and onto my body, how they are affected and how that actually works at a chemical level. So I saw that NTI was a very in-depth program. And I had, after a little bit of research, found out, high quality teachers. And after the first course, I thought, this is the program for me for sure. It's a deep dive. I'm taking in a lot of information and it's exactly what I wanted.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you for saying that. That is something that we pride ourselves on, being a very in-depth, comprehensive educational opportunity. And we really do focus on the science. So I'm thrilled to hear that that was a selling point for you, because that is a major effort on my part to make sure that we do teach the science. So All
And I
right.
did
So, oh,
everything
sorry.
remotely. I did
Yes.
everything remotely. And so
Yeah.
that was also a big selling point for me, as I have a home base in Iowa, but my partner and I, and now son, travel around a lot. And so having the opportunity to be remote and to have work in my own schedule, but also with the group start, being able to interact with the teacher or the professional was amazing. I think back to the different classes I took, and I can remember where I was in for each class. There were some where we were living in Seattle, some in Hawaii, some in Honduras, some in Mexico. So it's fun to think back to those different places and to know I was getting a really high quality education while being able to travel as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. All right, so let's jump into what you do. Um, and so you have a project called the Garbage Awareness Project. And on the surface, it looks like, you want to increase the awareness of, as you say, not only what we're putting into and onto our bodies, but also how that impacts the environment on a broader scale. And I did just do a brief perusal on your website, and you have a lot of really interesting stuff and a lot of DIY, make it yourself recommendations and stuff like that. So talk about what the Garbage Awareness Project is, and what inspired you to start this, and how's it been going?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thinking back to where it started, it's definitely transformed to where it is right now. But when it originally started, my partner and I were in Honduras on an island off the coast of Honduras, and we went to a beach and we became very aware of the amount of trash and plastic that was on the beach. And at that time, we were living in Iowa for the most part. And we began to question our own practices. We thought, okay, we're in a landlocked state. Could what we are doing there be affecting other places like the ocean? And we got to really questioning ourselves. And then, as everyone knows now, that the world is connected, everything is connected. So yes, what we were doing is affecting other parts of the world. So that moment was very eye-opening for us. And we began to question and ask ourselves, how can we give this aha moment to other people who may not have the opportunity to see the garbage that is collected on these beautiful beaches? And so that's what really sparked this project, was awareness, spreading awareness, and a journey of showing how are we making little changes in our life over time to do a bit better. Not perfect. We're still not perfect by any means, but how can we make these little changes to not only for the health of ourselves and our own bodies, but then also from Mother Earth as well. So like this beautiful balance between the two, the things that we're buying, the ways we decide to travel, the people we surround ourselves with, it's all connected. So it originally started with garbage and packaging and physical garbage. But then as time went on and I became more interested in nutrition, I began to call garbage many more things. So garbage could be things in processed foods that we're consuming, inflammatory seed oils, added sugars. It could be garbage as in toxins in our products, or garbage as negative energy with the people that we're surrounding ourselves with. So it's really expanded in our minds to be many things, to how can we reduce garbage in our lives, whether that be processed foods, things we're physically throwing away, negative energies, toxins in our products. So it can feel very overwhelming at first, but how we like to teach it is, where are you at right now? And how can you make these little swaps over time to make you feel like a healthier human and to do a little bit better for the earth?
Yeah, I love that. This is so like current for me right now, because my husband and I just happened to have watched just recently, a couple days ago, I don't know if you have Netflix, but we don't watch like standard TV. We, have a couple of streaming services, and that's all we watch when we do choose to watch things. But there's this new documentary that just came out on Netflix, and I think it was like the day before, or maybe on Thanksgiving Day, I don't know, just in time for Black Friday. And it's called, I have to look it up, it's called Buy More: The Shopping Conspiracy. And it's this documentary about these 5 strategies that companies use to get us to buy more, consume more, buy more. And then it goes into all of the repercussions of that buying more. And they really emphasize trash and garbage and waste. And it reminded me so much, like I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have a conversation with Meg in a couple of days. And this is,
Yes. Okay.
it's so interesting that they're happening at the same time for me. And of course, people who are watching this months from now, I don't know if that, if that documentary will still be available, but it was just fascinating. And it was actually hard to watch for us. We couldn't watch it all in one sitting because it really does make you think about, all right, I feel like I'm making good decisions and I feel like I'm doing the right things, but you start to realize how much your own personal impact is. And there are still, as you say, even you've been putting effort into doing this for a while. And, you say, even you aren't perfect and none of us are perfect, but it is really an eye opener. It was a
It
fact.
really is.
Yeah.
The thing that I think works best for our family, and then what I recommend for others who are wanting to get started, is to do what I call a trash audit. So you look in your own trash can at the end of the week, and you look at what you have in there, and then pick one thing. And you can either say, do I really need this thing? Can I do something different? Can I buy it a little more local? Can I quit buying it completely? It's very eye-opening when you see your own trash in front of you. And a big one is usually composting. There's usually lots of vegetable scraps or fruit scraps or things that could be turned into soil, and that can minimize your trash a lot. We're experiencing this firsthand right now. We're living in Guatemala at the time, and there's no landfills where we're at. And there's no garbage truck that comes to pick up your trash. So you have to figure out how to deal with your own trash on the piece of land that we're on. So you either burn your trash, you decide that, okay, I really don't need this thing, so I'm just not going to buy it anymore. You compost it, you can recycle some things, but it really is eye-opening. If everyone had to process their own trash, the amount of things, the lack of things we would buy, I think would be much different. It's a great motivator.
Yeah. Wow. That is really interesting. I never thought of it that way, to try and figure out how you would process your own trash to motivate you to reduce your consumption of certain things, so that you don't have to deal with that trash. That's amazing.
It's very eye-opening.
Yeah, absolutely. So you did a long haul travel from Iowa to Mexico, and you endeavored to make it as waste free as possible. So can you talk about uh, like why do that, and then what kind of challenges did you face, and how did you overcome some of those challenges?
This is a funny one. This was at the very start of me trying to be as garbage free as possible. So I was very extreme. We had a van that we built out. We set up the systems in the van to have solar, to have limited amounts of water. So we had to be very conscious of the things that we were using, the amount of electricity, the amount of water. And then as we were traveling, we started in Iowa. We went to Washington State, And then we drove all the way down the coast into Mexico, and then across Mexico up into Yucatan, and then back to Iowa. And throughout our entire travels, we were trying to be as garbage-free as possible. So the things that we were eating, purchasing, the things that we were buying, and it was very challenging. And like I said, I was at the very beginning of trying to be garbage-free, so I was very extreme. I was keeping all of our recycling in our van, keeping our compost in our van, to the point where my partner and I had lots of arguments that our van was becoming a large trash can, essentially. So there was lots of challenges with it. One solution that we did along the way, because we didn't stay in one spot for very long, was to try to find a local farmer's market or a local place where food was grown, because that was where we would find things with minimal packaging. We were also trying to reduce our food miles. So how many miles did it take to get the food to us? And we were also trying to do it very cheaply because we didn't have a lot of money at the time, and we were living in a van, and we were just trying to be, very frugal, but also healthy at the same time. So there was lots of challenges around that. And what I learned from the entire experience is that it's all about balance. Perfection is not going to happen with anything. So to give yourself some grace and to do the best you can with what you have in those moments, and to buy as locally as possible, is really what I learned. And that anything that you find at a convenience store or while you're traveling is likely going to be in some sort of plastic packaging with some sort of added sugar inside and inflammatory oils. So I always said that it's sugar wrapped in plastic. Anything at a convenience store is sugar wrapped in plastic. And it was quite the experience, but it taught us a lot about how important local is.
Yeah, absolutely. I have that same, we'll say, conversation with my husband all the time, because he does the same thing. He saves a lot of things because he doesn't want to throw them away, because he recognizes that they, are going to contribute to the overabundance of trash. So he saves them. And I do a similar thing, but I'm not as bad as him. So we constantly have to go back and forth. Like, is this truly something that, like how long are we going to save these empty packages? Because we don't have a lot of space to be saving trash, and you got it even worse living in, a van. But
I love that. It's like the balance between being a hoarder and being resourceful. How do you toe that line really closely?
Yes, yes, exactly. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about some of your experiences. So you said you're living in Guatemala now. I have in my notes that you did a yoga retreat in Guatemala. I don't know if that was in conjunction with where you're living now, but in that yoga retreat, you didn't eat meat for a month. And certainly many people don't eat meat. Many people consume vegan diets. Was that different for you to not eat meat during that time period? And what was that like for you?
Yes. Oh, that was such an experience, and an experience of clarity for me, because prior to going to, I did my yoga teacher training there for a month. And prior to that, I was stepping into this garbage-free sustainable world. So with marketing and sustainability, you often see don't eat meat, meatless Mondays.
Yep.
Being vegan, being vegetarian is the way to go when it comes to being a sustainable person. So I had some feelings of guilt within myself that I'm still eating meat. I'm contributing to this problem of am speaking to people about being sustainable, but I myself am still consuming meat on a regular basis. It even gives me the goosebumps now. I felt like a hypocrite. But I came to Guatemala and I did a retreat for a month, and they only served vegan food at this retreat. It was very healthy vegan food. Everything was made on site. I felt very depleted throughout the entire training. I had lots of gut issues. I had very low energy, and I began to question, why do I feel this way? I always hear that this vegan and vegetarian diet is so healthy for you and people feel so good while they're on it. And so come to find out afterwards and doing the NTI program a bit more, there's a lot of nutrients that we either can't get from plant foods or they're more bioavailable within animal products. And that was the light bulb for me. Like, oh, there's something to this. There was a reason why I was very low energy and I didn't feel very well. And to learn more and more about, can I eat meat in a sustainable way? And I began to do more research, and my partner and I decided that, okay, if we want to eat meat in a sustainable way, we want to be able to raise our own food. So we purchased a farm in Iowa, and we bought some pasture pigs, and we bought chickens, and we had our own garden, and we wanted to know what it was like to raise our own food and to eat the food that we raised. Because what we had found out is that, yes, eating meat can be very sustainable if it's done in a certain way. If it's done regeneratively, if the animals are eating what they're meant to be eating, if they're not in confined spaces, if it's a very intentional process. And I wasn't convinced that the things I was buying from the grocery store were of that nature, that I didn't know where they were coming from. And if I wanted to practice what I was preaching, so I wanted to grow our own food and raise our own animals. And it's a lot of work.
Yes.
Feeding animals twice a day and being around didn't lend itself well to our traveling nature. We love to travel, we love to go, and we had to be very set. And we stayed put for a while because we had animals to care for. When that came to an end and we wanted to sell the farm and move along, we butchered our own pigs on site and wrapped them up and stored them in the freezer and did the entire process. And wow, is that powerful. It's intentional. It makes me very emotional thinking about it. To have this connection to your food, to raise this animal or these animals every single day for a certain period of time and then take their life and consume the food that they have given you. I believe strongly that meat is a very important part of my diet, the human diet, to be a very healthy and garbage-free person. But then it comes down to how intentional are we around it and where are we getting this meat from? So I'm glad I had all of these experiences to piece together and to, have evolved into this thinking. But I was in that space of marketing is very good, that, you'd be sustainable if you eat meat and, eat an Impossible Burger instead of meat, when in fact the Impossible Burger is filled with inflammatory seed oils and things that are equally as bad for the environment. So it's a hot topic, I know, but having personally lived through these experiences, I have a very, very strong opinion in it now, having raised our own animals.
Yeah. Yeah, it is eye-opening and humbling. I don't raise my own animals, but I have done a lot of, on-farm education and farm tours and being present when animals are being harvested and, and their lives extinguished. And it is very humbling, and it makes you much more appreciative of our farmers and where we do get our food from. So are you able now in Guatemala to access high quality foods that you feel confident are the right things for you and your family to be eating?
The produce is very local. So the place where we're living right now, I'm able to go to the little market and I can pick up things that were picked that day. So I can pick
Oh,
up
nice.
strawberries, zucchini, potatoes, all of the produce. The meat is the hard one.
Mhm.
That is a difficult one. If we stay here longer term, I think it would be a good idea to have our own animals again.
Mhm.
But eggs have been our main source of protein because there's a local person who you know where they're at, you see what they're fed, they're picked that day, the eggs are picked that day. So
Mhm.
that's our main source of protein currently. But other
Mhm.
than that, it's really hard to find protein, meat, animal
Mhm. Mhm.
products here.
Mhm. Yeah. That's unfortunate. Maybe you'll start a new trend so people can learn from you and learn how to, do it so that there is more access for the locals
Mhm.
that do live there long term. But all right. Well, speaking of well, actually, I'm going to ask you about, do you provide any kind of educational opportunities for people in this area? But before I ask you that, you mentioned that one thing that people can do is try to determine how they could dispose of the waste that they're creating. And that is an eye-opening experience to help them maybe reduce their consumption and therefore reduce their waste. Can you talk about a couple of other small steps that people can take to make these positive impacts?
Hmm. Another big one that I talk about often with food is looking at the ingredient list.
Mhm.
That's a big one. I always say ignore everything on the front of the packaging. It's all marketing. It's trying to make you purchase the product. I don't care if it's green. I don't care if there's cows grazing in this beautiful pasture. Turn over the package and look at the items in the ingredient list. I
Mhm.
also disregard how many carbs are in it, how many fats.
Mhm.
Look at the ingredient list and see which items are in there. That will tell you a big portion of the story. Again, you're not going to be able to know where was this thing raised, how was it raised. The only way you'll know that is if you yourself are doing it. But the ingredient list can tell you a lot about what is in that product and how healthy it is for you.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
another big one I like to tell people is like we talked about before, buying local. Local
Yeah.
is such a big one because the food is likely picked that day or the day previous. There's limited food miles. You get to talk to the person that you're buying your food from. There's likely less packaging, so you can bring your own bag to the market. So if that's available to you, that's a big, it checks a lot of boxes when it comes to living a garbage-free or sustainable lifestyle.
Mhm. Those are great tips. And it reminds me again of an experience I just had within the past week. Um, uh, so um, I was having a meal and someone was very pleased and proud of themselves to tell me that they were using organic cream to make one of the dishes. And, she's like, see, and she holds up this container. And just like you said, on the front of the package, which is true, the front of the package is just there for marketing purposes, but, it was the brand and it said organic cream. And, I'm pretty sure it did have a picture of a cow on it. And she was very proud of herself. I'm using organic cream, and she really wanted me to be proud of the fact that she was using organic cream. And I turned it over and I looked at the ingredient list, and I didn't point this out to her because I didn't want to do anything that would burst bubbles or whatever, but and I didn't want to do it, in there with other people. But turn it around, and on the ingredients, it certainly was organic cream, but the first ingredient was organic milk, and then some sort of thickener. And then the third ingredient was organic cream. And of course,
Oh.
cream is the most expensive component of the dairy food. And they don't want to use full cream, right? They want to make it seem like it's cream, but it's actually not. It's milk with a thickener to make it look like cream. So anyways, it's just a perfect example of what you're talking about, is that you really need to look at the ingredients, because the front of the package is oftentimes very misleading. And it requires education, and that's why we're all here. That's why we're here at NTI. That's why our graduates are here to help educate their clients. So talk about what you offer, services you offer, and how you teach your clients. How do you provide education to your clients?
So I have a couple of different ways I like to teach currently, and one of those mostly through social media. And I have a lot of free guides through social media that I post about. I call them my beginner's guides. So there's beginner's guides to fermentation is another love and passion of mine. Fermentation, things like beginner's guide to bone broth, to making your own products at home, to making your own soap. Um, Swaps that you can make at the grocery store, because I understand that people are at different places. It's a
Yes.
spectrum. Maybe
Yes.
where you're starting, you think, I am not the type that wants to make my own soap at home, but can you tell me what is a better alternative to purchase at the store? And those are some of the resources that I also offer from my website is what swaps can you make at the store that are either in better packaging or better ingredients? And then if you think you want to get to the point of making some of your own products, I also have resources for that. And then in the next coming year, I'll be putting together more online workshops to learn about these different things. And there's so many different categories around this garbage-free lifestyle. Things like looking at the backs of ingredient lists, what to look for, what to avoid, what questions to ask at your local farmer's market. All of these things to live a little bit healthier and a little bit more sustainably. And then, so I have the free resources, the workshops, and then I also do one-on-one consulting. So if you are to a point where you think, I want to really look at my whole life and what I'm doing and make little swaps with my exercise, with my mindfulness, with the garbage that I'm producing, with the products I'm buying. It's a whole package offering where you can really look at your entire life and the habits that you have, and we can work together to make swaps for you to feel a little bit healthier and for you to do a little bit better for the earth as well.
I love that. That sounds like awesome resources. And you mentioned that you now have a new addition in your family, and I'm sure you are and are going to be a great resource for young moms too, because I think that's oftentimes a time when particularly moms get more involved in wanting to provide a healthier environment for their child, whether it be through the food and the things that they're putting on their body and the things that they're using in their home, all those kinds of things. Oftentimes, that's when people are highly motivated, is when they have small children.
Yes, I 100% agree. When after you have a child, you begin to question everything. What shampoo are you putting on them? What soap are you using? What foods are you putting in their body? That was another topic through NTI that I learned a lot about, was the kiddo. I know there's a class specifically around feeding yourself when you're pregnant, and then also feeding your kiddo when they're young and at certain ages. So that was also, it came at a great time, that class. I was actually pregnant with my little one when I took that class. So
Oh, nice.
it took me step by step through pregnancy, and then I had the tools to help him eat very well when he started to eat food.
Oh, that's awesome. Nice. All right. Well, so how can people find you? Tell us about your website and all of your social media contacts.
Yeah, so my website is thegarbageawarenessproject.com. That has a garbage-free store where you can purchase some resources that I talked about. It also has a blog with some free information. That will also be where my upcoming workshops will be. The most relevant, or the thing I post on the most, is Instagram, and my handle is garbage-free.hippie. And I post daily with different tips and tricks and free resources, and really use that as a way to talk about our travel journey and the things that are going on in our own lives, what I'm thinking about, what I've been wanting to swap, to hopefully give some inspiration to others as well.
Yeah, I love that. All right. Well, Meg, this has been a really fun conversation. I think that while a lot of people in this sort of holistic wellness field think about the things that we're talking about, I would imagine that you have gone to much greater lengths than many of us have. And so I hope people will find this conversation, inspiring and motivating to dig deeper into ways that they can start making changes in their own lives. So thank you so much for taking the time today to be with me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was nice. All righty, well, have a great rest of your day, and we hope to talk to you soon. Well, keep us updated with what you're doing.
Sounds great. See you later.
All righty. Hi, Diane Kaler here again. If you found this conversation interesting and haven't already become a student at NTI, check us out at ntischool.com. We hope to see you soon.